Doing last week's podcast got me thinking a lot more about my life as a single. Things I got wrong, things I got right, and here are 3 more things I got right. Hey, this is Todd. Welcome to the Thrive Singles Podcast. Whether you're single again or still single, stop hating being single and learn to thrive. And welcome back to another week of the Thrive Singles Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make it a weekly habit and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Last week, I told you part of my story and I told you about 3 things I got right while I was single. This week, I want to tell you a little more and tell you about 3 more things I got right. Things like waiting. I don't know if you've noticed this, but people have trouble waiting. Today, it seems like more than ever, people seem to have no ability or inclination to delay gratification. It's assumed that any human want, need, or desire has to be satisfied soon as possible. One of the biggest mistakes I see single people make, especially those who are single again, is they rush into dating too quickly and into new relationships too quickly. Thank God that was a lesson I was able to learn from witnessing other singles' mistakes, so I didn't have to make that mistake for myself. I saw enough people get hurt over and over in this repetitive, get interested, get together, get discouraged, get out cycle that kept me away from it. One of the things I got right was that I waited. I waited till I was over my ex and had healed up significantly before getting into a relationship. In fact, and you might find this hard to believe in this day and age, but I had no romantic dating relationship until I got to know the woman I married. I was single and unattached for more than 6 years after my divorce. And if I can do this, me, this weak-willed guy who thrives on affection and who my ex stopped just short of accusing of being a sex addict, if I can do it, then pretty much anybody can do it. It's absolutely possible, and I believe it's necessary. One reason I waited, like I said before, was I saw so many other singles going through so much heartbreak. Another reason I waited was out of honor for my last marriage. I waited until there was no hope of reconciliation, in fact, until after my ex remarried. And if your spouse leaves you, that kind of waiting isn't a requirement. Just for me personally, I felt better waiting and praying for reconciliation until it was no longer an option. Another reason I waited was to educate myself. I wanted to make sure I had more knowledge. I wanted to know how to date and how to have better relationships. I wanted to know what it takes to form a relationship that can last a lifetime. Divorcing once was hard enough. Why leave any room for another relationship disaster? And one of the questions people love to ask single people is if they're dating anyone. Who are you dating? Who are you seeing now? It's hard enough to deal with our own internal drive for intimacy, but then family, friends, and society put pressure on us too. And it's a societal expectation. And not just any type of dating. Part of modern dating is the expectation that you're having sex. Another important thing I got right was not dating. I just dated a lot. And if you've listened to this podcast for a while, or if you've been reading the blog, you know what I mean by that. What I didn't do was get into some romantic, intimate, sexual relationship. What I did do was go out for fun, non-romantic, dates with lots of different women. And at first this was partly because of a fear of ever falling in love again. But later it was because I learned that this was the best way to date. And the best way to find out if someone's the type of person you can imagine yourself married to. You only know that if you've spent significant time with them and with other people of the opposite sex. For that reason, it's important to go on dates with lots of different types of people. That's something I got right. I spent time with different women of different personality types from different backgrounds even of different races. I mean, why limit yourself? Of course, no matter how similar or different they are from you, they need to match your list. Go back and read my blog posts or listen to my podcast episode about making your list. I believe making a good list is essential to getting dating right. And one last thought on this subject. It's best to avoid overly romantic settings when you go out on a date. One of the things I got right was to go on dates in well-lit public places. I mean, why tempt yourself? Another thing I got right was commitment. Like I pointed out in my podcast on March 9th, a lot of people today are horribly gamophobic. They also lack purpose in their dating. They tend to kind of slide into some sort of ambiguous, vague, undefined relationship, usually with a sexual component. What I got right here goes hand in hand with what I've said so far. First, I waited till I was healed up. My ex was no longer an option, and I knew a lot more about how dating and relationships work. Then I spent quality time with different types of women, and significant non-romantic time around a certain woman named Anita. Then, once I decided that Anita was a woman who possessed the character traits and personality traits I value, and that the rest of my life would be better with her than without her, I made a commitment. First, it was a commitment to exclusivity. I'd no longer go out with anybody else. We'd take some time to get to know each other even better and talk through all the important things, the things that people need to know about each other before they decide to get married. What we got right was there was a logical progression from single to dating to engagement to marriage, then to living together and having sex. There was also a parallel emotional path from strangers to friends to a couple to greater and greater emotional intimacy. And of course, there was, the physical closeness going from nothing to hand-holding and kissing and eventually building up to sexual intimacy after we got married. So there was always parallel paths of emotional, spiritual, and physical intimacy growing as the level of commitment grew. And that's the important thing to get right. If you want to get the most out of anything, you have to make a commitment to it. That's true of careers, art, sports, and it's never truer than when it comes to relationships. That's something very important that I got very right. When I found someone I truly desired and could see myself married with for the rest of my life, I proposed marriage. Then we got married. Then we moved in together. Then we had sex. When it comes to a relationship, the quality of it is directly related to the commitment you make to it. For best results, be intentional about your relationships. For best results, make a real commitment in a ceremony before God and man to a lifetime, legally binding relationship in the eyes of God and the state, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until one of you dies. This isn't some Hollywood romance, but this is the kind of relationship in which romance, intimacy, and sexual fulfillment flourish. So to wrap it up, if you want to thrive as a single person, don't rush into dating relationships. Wait to date until you're healed, whole, and have learned enough about dating to do it right and make the most of it. Then, once you start going out, go out with different types of people. Just make sure they're people who embody the character traits you value, all the things on your list. Then after going out with a fair number of people, if you find one person who your life would be better with than without, make a real, formal, lifelong commitment. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. See you next week. Till then, be sure to subscribe and go check out my extensive archive of past posts at thrivesingles.com. And thrive on.
Whoa, thrive. Yeah, come alive. There's more to life. You gotta grow. You gotta thrive. Whoa, whoa, you gotta thrive. than to just survive. You gotta grow, you gotta thrive.